What's going on, everybody? It is the one and only Q back in effect, as always, here with our 45th episode of our Quack experimental podcast. Now, before we get into today's topics and all as well, I do want to comment on something I talked about just the other day. I had a woo lad moment, as they say, because earlier on in this week, I put out a video where I let everyone know that I just couldn't stand the fanboys and they were just so bad. And it just got to the point where I almost snapped. It was this close. I was on the breaking point. It was at the red line. And it made me realize that earlier at the start of this year, I wanted to stay out of fanboy stuff completely. I failed at that consistently week on week on week on week. And, well, we saw what happened. So, going forward, this time I'm actually going to stick to it. I am covering as little fanboy related stuff as possible. There will be one or two things that are grounded in, facts and whatnot too, but overall, I will be completely staying away from that. It also stems with the whole Nintendo Switch being the worst fan base I've ever seen, and they're basically just a Wii 2.0, and now every one of those Wii 2.0 casuals has a Twitter account and a YouTube account, and probably a Reddit account and a 4chan account, and remember Reset Era where they get banned every fucking 5 seconds. But my point is that I am staying away from as much of that as possible now, because it's bad for my health. It's bad for my mental health, clearly. It's just not working for me, and I don't like it at all. We'll see how it goes. I'm sticking to it this time, I promise. But anyway, let's start this week's one. I wanted to wait until today to record this one. Specifically, I was going to do it yesterday, but I wanted to wait today because I saw the date on what was happening today. And that, of course, was Metro Exodus. Now, Metro Exodus is finally out on Steam today on the 15th of February 2020, after 1 year of timed paid exclusivity from the anti-consumer Epic Games Store. Now, this is not the first game who's had its timed exclusivity run out and then it finally came to another platform, well, Steam and whatnot, but it is the first high-profile one, and probably one of the most controversial ones, if not the most controversial one. It is the highest-profile game. It's also the first big AAA game that was full price, proper, publisher, developer, yada, yada, yada. Now, so, going into this, we want to look at one major thing, the big thing we're coming in for. After a 1 year lack of release, lack of release, whatever it is, 1 year lapse, we'll call it, from its initial release, what is the price going to be? Because obviously that's a big one. Because don't forget, the game, if it did sell on the Epic Games Store, they got the money for it, they got their cut, whatever it was. And Epic Games paid for several hundred thousand, that's right, they paid millions upon millions of dollars in advance for hundreds of thousands of copies of the game. So they already got literally millions and millions, probably 10 plus million, in order to get the timed exclusive rights. So would Deep Silver, would they be greedy? Would they try, well, obviously they're greedy, but would they be extra greedy and try to double fuck everyone? So let's take a quick look at the prices, because they went live overnight. I expected them to go live later today at 5 p.m. GMT when the Steam store refreshes, and that's why I was going to plan on waiting till tonight to make this video, or well, this episode, but they didn't. They went live overnight. Maybe they went live at midnight, I don't know, but they were live by the time I woke up this morning. So, without further ado, the basic price, including just Metro Exodus by itself on Steam, is €40. Now, that's currently sitting at 40% off for the weekend as well, which brings it down to €24. They also have a gold edition, which is €65, but again, 40% off, you're down to €39 just for this weekend. Now, the gold edition, as you'd expect, is the base version of the game and the season pass, including both DLCs. But overall, I'm glad that they didn't have the balls to try and go full price and fuck everyone for this. I think €40 for what would be a €60 game it's relatively reasonable. Now, I can't remember what the price of Epic, what Metro Exodus was on the Epic Game Store when it launched, but as far as I know, it was still full price. As far as I remember, it was still €60 or so. Now, I could be wrong, but anyway, the big thing is that they did drop it. I do think that €40, if a game is €60 at launch, I do think the €40 post-launch price is the best of the worst. Because overall, this situation is complete bullshit and blah, blah, blah. You know the whole thing. I won't go super in-depth into it because I've beaten that thing to death. Now, I still won't be buying this game, even though I did play it and it didn't cost me a single penny. But I won't be buying this game because it sends the wrong message to the publisher that we support this product. That we will say, okay, even though you fucked us on release in order to get your millions and millions, and, 1 year later, you expect us to buy it, even if it's not full price, even if it's only 2/3 of the original price. You still expect us to give it to the message is that, okay, we will accept this and we will still give you money, albeit not full price, but we will still give you money a year later when that runs out. I am not dealing with that at all. I am not down with that. Maybe I'll buy it in a Steam sale for €5 a few months from now, whenever it happens, but I will not be buying this at full price. It just gets the wrong message across, and hopefully that shit ends because Epic Games are really doing some damage at this point. Anyway, anecdotal evidence here, but over the last few days since the second major DLC launched, I've been watching the player count on Steam. Now, typically the player count on Steam has been hovering in around the 300 to 800 players since the DLC launched. Now, typically, before the DLC launched, I checked in the run-up the first few days before the DLC launched, and you'd have double-digit players. You'd have like 13 players or 36 players or something like that anyway. So it was very, very small. And then when the DLC did launch, they had between 300 and 800 players, depending on when I check it. Now, several times over the course of this morning, I went and checked the player counts as well, as people in different time zones, people were waking up, people were buying the game, people were installing, yada, yada, yada. And I was taking a quick look to just get a quick anecdotal slight gauge of how many people have bought the full price, the full release of Metro Exodus on Steam. So over the last few days, like I said, between 300 and 800 players just for the DLC alone. And over the several times that I've looked at it over the course of this morning, it would average between 4,400 players and 5,100 players. The highest I'd seen would be 5,102, and the lowest I think was 43.99, I believe it was. 43.98 maybe. But yeah, so you're looking at 4,400 to 5,100 when it comes to it. Now, quickly, I will round out my thoughts about how I feel about Metro Exodus as a game, because I love Metro 2033 and I love Metro Last Light, although Metro 2033 is much better than Last Light, but Last Light is still a good game. So those are great games. They're very tight, they're very focused, they're narrative heavy, they're story heavy. They're very, very good games. They've got a certain weight, as you would expect, as is portrayed from what's in it with the gameplay and the gunplay. But when it comes to Metro Exodus, the one that went finally open world and all as well, it's arguably, and considerably I should say, the worst of the three. Now, when I say the worst of the three, the majority of the game I found for Metro Exodus was very, very boring. It has several open world, different levels, different areas, if you will, and they're all pretty much boring and empty, for the lack of a better word. They've got arguably no personality and pretty much nothing to do in them, and they almost serve as a hindrance and an annoyance rather than something that adds to the gameplay. Metro's strongest point over the last, we call it 3 games at this point, has been their tight, confined focus. Sure, you do go above ground now and again, but that's not the point. When I say tight and contained and confined, I'm not talking about just fighting in a metro tunnel. No. Everything is very linear in the previous games, but it does so at the cost, if you will. Not so much at the cost. It does so in order to give you better quality experience in what it's trying to do. Metro Exodus doesn't have that benefit, unfortunately. Metro Exodus tries to do the same thing, but go open world. Now, the big problem with that is, as I've listed all the problems so far with the open world, it's basically devoid of life. Which I think is kind of funny, because when you look at it, Metro Exodus, between every open world area, there is one linear level transition. And when you play those tight linear level transitions between open areas, you start to get the feel back. You think, okay, this is starting to get good. This is enjoyable. This is good. This is Metro. And then you finish that and you're in the next big open area and the game is just falls apart again. So I think that's very funny that I think there's 3 or 4 best parts of Metro Exodus are the small, compact, linear narrative levels between open areas, because the open areas were just completely shite, for lack of a better word. Now, that is one extra thing I want to say as well on top of it. The quality of the visuals in the game are still fantastic. I played it completely maxed out, unfortunately without ray tracing, because, well, I only have a GTX 1080 Founders Edition, but even at that, the game was one of the best looking games I'd ever seen. And then you see all the videos where they're showing it running at max settings, 4K 60 FPS with ray tracing, or whatever resolution with ray tracing and everything maxed out. And the game looks absolutely gorgeous. It looks like next gen in the sense that it looks like something we should have had about 4 years ago, but consoles holding stuff back and whatnot too. So overall, stay away from Metro Exodus. Don't support this message. I will say this though, go on to Steam and pick up either Metro 2033 Redux or Redo, whatever it's called, and Metro Last Light, because they're also on sale. The entire franchise is on sale at the moment, so you can pick those other 2 games up, the initial 2, for probably €4 or €5 a piece. I didn't go and look, I already own them, I just saw the banner. So I definitely do recommend picking those up while they're dirt cheap, but stay away from Metro Exodus. And speaking of other things to stay away from, I kid, I joke, don't have a heart attack, we're talking about Dreams. Now, Dreams is that PS4 game, the almost Little Big Planet version, but, you know, the next one, if you will. But it looks very, very different in that way. It's from Media Molecule, one of the PS4 or one of the Sony-owned studios. And, well, we're not here so much to talk about the game itself today, because we're going to talk about some interesting comments from one of the studio co-founders. And over the last couple of weeks and whatnot, it's becoming slightly evident, if you will, that some games, some Sony first-party, what have been previously exclusives, will be making the jump from PS4 to PC. Now, Horizon Zero Awards is one of the biggest profile one in this way too. But a few weeks ago, one of the journalists and one of the other people and all as well, they also kind of hinted that Dreams may be coming to the PC as well. And right now, it's looking even more likely, almost arguably confirmed for PC, because one of the studio co-founders of Media Molecule has said that our plan is to publish Dreams on PC eventually. We just don't know when yet. So that's very, very interesting. That's to me, that screams confirmation without being a confirmation. That is a confirmation, but we're not ready to give a release date yet. That's what that says to me. I believe Dreams only launched yesterday on PS4, so it's still, well, in full form. I know it had early access for a few months, but it screams to me that this is the one. And like I said, when I talked about this a few times, it would not surprise me if they had started launching their games on PS4, then after maybe a year or two, when the sales dry up, they launch it on PC. Hit a whole new market. Hundreds of millions of extra gamers. So that makes sense to me, definitely. Now, I will say, it is one of the creation style games. So the creation style games obviously do best on PC. They're not as limited. You can do whatever, you can mod whatever. So it is even further and even more varied. The possibilities would basically be endless. Far, far exceeding by a massive metric than they would be on PS4. Now, like I said, creation games, blah, 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 they're all the best on there. But I will round it out by saying one thing. Put everything else on PC as well. I want to play some of those games with better quality. I want to play The Last of Us Part 2 with 60, 120 FPS and not have to sacrifice everything else like the console version will. Playing with a controller? Yikes. Playing with 30 FPS? Yikes. Some fake super dynamic resolution with fake interpolation? Yikes. Not how we roll here on the glorious PC Gaming Master Race. Give me all those games. I I want to play them better. I would be more likely to play some of those games if the ones I would pretty much not be interested in, if I could play them in a better way. That's pretty much what happened with Yakuza, actually. I had no interest in playing on Yakuza, and then it came to PC. Now, let me give you a couple of quick examples. We've already talked about The Last of Us Part 2. I would potentially play Horizon Zero Awards if it came to PC properly. I would potentially play God of War, a series I don't really like. I probably wouldn't play Uncharted. I played 2 of those games and pretty much hated it. But yeah, it opens up to another market. I'm just one guy. How many people out there only have good PCs and don't want to waste their time and money on a console just to play 4 or 5 games, and at 30 frames per second at that? See what I mean? It's a big market, so it makes perfect sense. Microsoft have already done it. Maybe Sony will next. But onto a game I am actually interested in next. We have Trials of Mana. So Trials of Mana, as you may or may not already know, is a proper, full 3D remake from the ground up of, well, I was going to say of Trials of Mana, but of Suikoden Densetsu 3, aka Secret of Mana 2, a game that for over 20 years had been stuck in Japan, basically, unless you used a fan-translated ROM. Or more recently, when they announced it last year, surprisingly enough, the Mana Collection, where they finally translated it for the first time ever. And boy, was I so happy about that. Now, back to our big thing to talk about here. There may be a demo for Trials of Mana. Now, Trials of Mana is coming out in April, but in the meantime, hopefully at least anyway, we get a little bit of a test beforehand. So a website called GameStat, which logs changes to PSN listings, even if they're only hidden or on the back end, lists a Trials of Mana demo will be released possibly, or at least is added, and it may be released at some point. Now, like the Final Fantasy VII Remake demo that GameStat also logged as well, and you remember the Final Fantasy VII Remake demo has yet to materialize, we don't know yet. We don't know if it's post-launch, we don't know if it's at launch, we don't know if it's a pre-order bonus that's going to come down the line, we don't know if it's going to launch before the game. We have to wait and see. This goes for both the Final Fantasy VII Remake demo as well as the Trials of Mana demo too. Now, hopefully it doesn't just come out on the PSN when it comes to the demo. Hopefully it comes out on the pre-launch to Steam as well. I don't care if it comes out on the Nintendo Switch, no one does, or no one that matters anyway does. But yeah, hopefully it comes out to Steam as a playable demo, and I'm looking forward to the game on Steam, of course, and I would like to try it. The 3D remake of Secret of Mana, my favorite game ever, at least the original SNES game is my favorite game ever, but the 3D remake of that was pretty damn dire, and I was very disappointed in that. However, the Trials of Mana remake is completely different. With the exception of using almost the same art style, it looks kind of like a hybrid between the Secret of Mana 3D remake and maybe Dragon Quest, Akira Toriyama style. It looks like kind of a mix in between there. And, well, it looks good. I want to play it a little bit, if possible, first, because the gameplay is very, very different. So I'm thinking it will probably be a little bit better anyway. Anyway, the game is out in about 2 months anyway, so I'll have to wait and see. If the demo comes out beforehand, you'll be damn sure I'll be playing that. And if it doesn't, well, I'll still be playing the game anyway. Now it's time for some big juicy discussion that's been going around the last couple of days. We have the PlayStation 5. Now, when it comes to the PlayStation 5, we know it's supposed to be out sometime at the end of this year in 2020. But, well, there's some big questions going on regarding it at the moment. There's tons of them actually, but this one that we're talking about right now is the cost and supply of PS5. Now, when I say the cost, this breaks down into 2 different parts. The cost of manufacture and what could essentially be, or eventually be, the cost to consumers. And of course the supply as well. Who knows, with the cost, the price, the making them, who knows, maybe even the coronavirus. That's something I don't want included with my PS5. But yeah, we'll get into it now anyway. So a Bloomberg report from anonymous sources have claimed several different things that is going to affect this when it comes to cost and supply of the PS5. So they've looked at things such as DRAM prices and DRAM availability, as well as the same price and availability issues for NAND flash memory. Which makes perfect sense, really, because, well, PC parts have been used and stuff like this for years and years at this point. And of course, mid to high-end mobile phones, smartphones, all want them too. So you have the likes of Samsung buying God knows how many millions of units for all their S10s, their S20s, their Note 10s, yada yada yada. You have them doing, all the other companies doing the same thing as well. So naturally, with the move over to SSD in these new consoles, that's another contender in there too when it comes to, well, two new contenders actually. We're mainly looking at Sony and the PS5 in this one, but it adds another one in there with bidding wars and manufacturing times and, well, manufacturing availability and supply basically. Now, you couple this with the potential cost of the silicon in there as well. I mean that with the likes of the Ryzen chip and the Navi GPU and whatnot too. It's estimated to cost Sony $450 per unit to make. That is an exceptionally large amount when it comes to a console. Now, that's an exceptionally large amount to manufacture per unit when it comes to console. Now, remember as well, this is important to get into here because this is only for an individual unit manufacturer. This is not shipping. This is not taxes. This is not import duties and tariffs. This is not packaging. This is not retailer cuts and all as well. Although typically retailers at launch anyway will only make, sometimes they don't even make anything on them. Sometimes they make like €1 or €3 or something on a console sale at launch. But you see my point. If it's €450 to make an individual unit, excluding all these external factors, the big question is how much is the PS5 going to cost consumers in the end of the day? Now, I've said it multiple times before that I expect it, or I would expect it, to be at least 500. With everything they were saying that was going to be in there, I would expect it to be at least 500. It wouldn't surprise me at all. And depending on the cost and all at the time, it could potentially, possibly, have hit it down to 450. I didn't expect to see it at 400 from Sony, but I thought they might be able to squeeze it away at 450. Now, in this case, I don't think Sony are going to be, if it's $450 to make a single unit, I don't think it's going to be viable for Sony to eat such a big loss on 450 at a retail product. I don't think that's possible at all from them. And now seeing all this, the fact that I wouldn't have been surprised originally if it had been over 500, maybe close to 6. PS3, anyone? That was what, 620, 630 at launch? Something like that. But now, knowing all of this, it does not surprise me at all. And I don't see Sony taking a loss on that hardware. Even if it does mean even if they expect to get sales beyond what the PS4 did. Not in both quantity over time, but just adoption rate. You know, maybe they sold 1 million a month previously, maybe they expect to sell 1.5 or 2 million, and then they would make all their money back from PSN, games licenses, game subscriptions, etc., etc. Even if they expect all of that, I don't think they can take such a big loss on that. They could, depending on shipping, packaging, yada yada yada, all the additional stuff, they may be able to sell it at cost price. Now, when I say cost price, I mean cost price for the unit manufacturer, not for all the extra stuff involved as well. Because realistically, that would probably all add up to maybe 500, which is kind of reasonable in a sense as well. And I'm going to get to something about this now in a second as well, just as we finish out this segment. But it is very important to say that Sony also have adopted the wait and see attitude, because Microsoft still haven't announced the price of this Xbox, which is also tipped to be more powerful than the PS5. Now, this is questionable in a few different ways because, well, you know, I mean, when you look at, say, Sony and what they're doing, yikes. So, what do we think is going to happen? I think Microsoft are far, far more able and willing, especially after last generation where they completely flopped the Xbox One. I believe they're far more willing and probably going to eat a massive loss on Xbox One, on Xbox units, just because they want to get, if Sony launch at 450, Microsoft launch at 350, 400, they have a serious advantage between being cheaper and being more powerful, that's a serious advantage to many people. Not everyone buys exclusive games. You look at some of the exclusive games on a console that sold over 100 million units. Some of the games have sold 4 million units. That's a Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword tier adoption rate or attach rate. So I understand exclusive. I'm not going to get into the whole thing there as well, but it's not the main thing for the majority of people, clearly. And that's why. So I think Microsoft are going to put it down at such a low price that Sony can't. Microsoft can eat all that money. They can eat that loss. They have all their other ventures. Sony have several other ventures and avenues as well. Many of them, if not all of them except for PlayStation, are not doing too well. Microsoft have a huge bank of cash. Sony have a small pile of cash. So it is entirely possible there. Now, at the same time, I've always said that when you look at the hardware and everything that's in these, it would not surprise me at all if they did go super expensive. Which makes it a little bit questionable when you think of the Xbox, considering that Microsoft have confirmed that none of their first-party games will be next-gen only. Of course, that means Xbox and PC. And they're all going to factor into Jaguar for at least 1 to 2 years. And so they haven't mandated that third-party developers do it as well. In fact, you look at that new game from Outriders from, what's it called? Square Enix. I believe that's on all 5 platforms. I believe that's on Xbox One, Xbox, PS4, and PS5, and of course PC. I'm not 100% confirmed about the current gen stuff, but I know it is definitely next gen and PC. So I'll have to go and double check that at some point. Actually, I won't, because the game looks pretty shit. I have a different video recorded that I haven't edited or published yet that talks a little bit about that. But I might get around to doing that anyway. So in the meantime, what will we see with the price? When will we see the price? And when will we see the release date as well? I expect E3 from Microsoft's one, of course. Sony might do something beforehand. Maybe Microsoft will also do something beforehand. We'll have to wait and see. I don't really care. I'll just buy them anyway. Because, I have no fucking self-control. And I hate myself. And I hate money. Get it the fuck away from me. Now, as we hit the halfway point of February, this next topic is going to tie in with our final little topic that everyone loves, of course. Because in March and April, we have pretty much a deluge of games when it comes to new stuff, new releases on whatever platform it is. So, this will all tie in with what I'm going to, what am I playing, what am I doing, and whatnot. We'll have that section as well. Don't fret, everyone. Don't fret. There's no way I would ever end it without doing something like that. You know me. I'm here for you guys. That's why I know everyone comes for that. So, my motto. I deliver. But in the meantime, what am I looking forward to when it comes to next month as well? Because this is all going to hit hard and fast. Now, it's more so April when you look at it, but there's still a couple of things in March as well. So coming soon with the big deluge of games. I will also say that hopefully Halo Combat Evolved Anniversary comes to PC in the meantime, because they're already doing their first test flights for Combat Evolved. They're doing it a little bit differently as well, so it looks like they may be coming out sooner and quicker, rather when it comes to how the test flights were handled for Reach in the past. At least they do have a bit of experience with them now too, with all the stuff that was done in Halo Reach. But anyway, hopefully we'll have Halo Combat Evolved. We have Doom Eternal on March 20th, also Doom 64, because that comes in with it. Animal Crossing on March 20th, what a time to be alive when the two of those come out. Half-Life Alyx on March 23rd as well. That's an interesting one, because I don't know if I'm going to play it straight away. I kind of want to hold off, maybe build a new PC, get an Index and an RTX 3080 Ti at the same time, and then play it properly. But I don't know if I'm going to be able to restrain myself. Resident Evil 3 Remake, April 3rd. Final Fantasy 7 has been pushed, of course, to April 4th. I would have kind of preferred that had come out in March, to be honest, in its original date, but I can wait another month. That's not going to kill me anyway. Trials of Mana, April 24th, Gears Tactics, April 28th, and at some point in April, with no confirmed date yet, Borderlands 3 on Steam. Again, I might have to wait on one or two of these games, as well as Borderlands 3 being one of them. Mainly because, well, that game is optimized like shit, and I want to play it properly, maxed out the way it should be played. In the meantime, we might have the Analog Pocket 2 as well. That's something I'm really looking forward to. Still no time and date on it, whatnot too. But if I remember right from all of the previous stuff that I've bought, like the Analog Super NT and the Analog Mega SG, they all launched and shipped in around that March, April period, if I remember correctly. Could have been February, maybe that could have been pre-orders. I don't remember off the top of my head. But I will say, with this big list of games and what I had this list at originally, thankfully, Cyberpunk was delayed until September, because now I was looking down the barrel of playing Cyberpunk and Final Fantasy VII, two big RPGs, and then of course everything else in the meantime within the space of a couple of weeks and whatnot too. So I'm just going to say I'm happy that Cyberpunk was delayed, and it gives me a little bit more time to do all of that anyway. Oh, but I will say over the course of the next 2.5 to 3 months, it will be some pretty good times when it comes to new game releases and whatnot. And then, I know it's a little bit later down the line too, but at the end of May, we have The Last of Us Part 2. Hopefully that doesn't get delayed as well. But yeah, that's going to be fun. I'm really looking forward to that. Anyway, in the meantime, of course, as promised, I will deliver everyone's favorite, the holy grail of segments. Q, what is up? What's going on? What's going down? What's the 411? What are you doing? What are you playing? Well, I've basically been reliving my World War II kick. Reliving, he says. Were you in World War II? Well, I can't tell you that, or I may have to kill you. But anyway, what have I been doing? So last week, I believe it was, in this one, I stated that I was playing Medal of Honor Pacific Assault, because they gave it away for free on Origin yonks ago at some point. And I was in my Band of Brothers, Company of Heroes, World War II mood. So I completed Medal of Honor Pacific Assault. Was kind of lackluster of a game, really. Obviously, it holds nothing to Medal of Honor Allied Assault, the pinnacle of the series and the best World War II game ever made, the best World War II first-person shooter ever made. But I continued on my little World War II kick in the meantime. I went back, I hooked up my OG Xbox 180, and I played Medal of Honor Frontline. That's right, Medal of Honor Frontline, the bastardized console version, if you will, of Medal of Honor Allied Assault. Of course, consoles couldn't run Allied Assault properly, so they had to dumb it down and, well, make a different game, basically, and made Frontline in there. Now, Frontline was nowhere near as bad as I remember it to be. It was still an okay game, but yeah, I finished it. It was promising enough, and it was a decent experience, especially when you play with an RGB SCART cable on a PVM. Ooh lad, that is glorious. And the frame rate is better than 99% of modern games, which was so gloriously funny to me. And it made it so much better to play because it's a proper, smooth, responsive experience. Yeah, that was fun. And then I moved on to Medal of Honor Rising Sun. Now, I believe I've mentioned it once or twice before in the past, but Medal of Honor Rising Sun is the Medal of Honor game that completely turned me off the series. It was so ridiculously bad when I played it originally back when it was brand new that, well, I managed to return it straight away the same night, get my money back, and the only other time I've played Medal of Honor, or at least the new Medal of Honor since, was when I played a Medal of Honor Airborne demo, because at the start of the 360 era, yeah, there was pretty much nothing to do. So, having said all that, I found out something very important that I never knew before. Medal of Honor Rising Sun, wait for it, in co-op is actually a different game than it is in single player. I never played the single player before. I only bought Medal of Honor Rising Sun back in the day to play co-op. I was sitting in a friend's house one night, I still remember it, and we were really bored with nothing to play. So I said, fuck it, let's go, I'll buy a new game and we'll play something. I bought Medal of Honor Rising Sun, and we started playing it and returned it about 45 minutes later. So, yeah. But then when I played single player, it was much, much better. Now, I say much, much better. It still wasn't good or great. It was just considerably better than the dirt that it was. However, I'm going to add an addendum. I was going to say preface, but I'm going to add an addendum to that as well. Typically, when you play a PC game or a console game or a changed console port of a PC game Typically, the original PC game is even better. However, I will say, when you compare Medal of Honor Pacific Assault on PC and Medal of Honor Rising Sun on OG Xbox 180, I know it's on the other consoles too, but that's what I played it on. Yeah, Rising Sun is actually better than Pacific Assault, which I thought was kind of fun and strange. It's got a lot more variety to it. When you look at Pacific Assault, a lot of the levels in that were all the same, the very, very same jungle that you're going through that you can't see anything through, which was really annoying as well, because enemies can see through all the leaves that you can't with their hyper-focus laser vision. And in the console one, and Rising Sun, that's not so much the case. They're shorter, a couple of jungle levels too, but it's spaced out and laid out better, just in the jungle levels in general, and you have much more variety in the game overall. But I will say this, it doesn't share the same quality performance that Medal of Honor Frontlines does, because Rising Sun has significant and serious frame rate issues, whereas when you're playing Medal of Honor, Frontline, that runs very, very smoothly. That is great on a nice PVM CRT. It is delicious in that way. However, I will say this. I was planning and expecting to finish Medal of Honor Rising Sun last night or early this morning, because I was on the third last level. I was on level 7 of 9. Now, we have a bit of a problem. My disc was a little bit scratched. And unfortunately, when I was playing through the 7th level last night, the disc scratches came back to haunt me. I was worried about it the whole time, but we had no issues the entire time I was playing it. But then, as I started getting through the 7th level with its own new music, the music started skipping, and then the music stopped. And then every so often the game would freeze for maybe 10 seconds, and I'd go a bit further. And I was hoping I could push through it. But we got an F in chat moment. Or, as someone who's played Phantasy Star Online Episode 1 and 2 back on the GameCube knows, a frozen death, an FSODX, the frozen screen of death extreme. Because my game froze up and crashed the console while I was saving it. I turned the console off, I turned the console back on again, put the disc in, went to load my game, profile and save game corrupt. Yikes. So I'm not going through that whole thing again, especially considering that it could happen yet again. So Rising Sun is done. I am probably not going to play any more World War II stuff. I might watch Saving Private Ryan later today. Maybe while this is rendering actually. But in the meantime, I think I'm going back to something else. I've played enough non-RPGs to cleanse my palate, and I might go back to an RPG next. I don't know what it's going to be. I'll have to look through some stuff. I did some musing with it last night, but I couldn't settle on anything. Maybe I'll finally manage to decide on something today, and we'll go from there. But that's pretty much it. I still have 2 weeks in the meantime. Actually, you know what? Now that I think about it, I've got about a month because of the Final Fantasy VII delay. I've got about a month left of old retro stuff to work my way through, to clear off and knock out of the backlog. So I still have some good times ahead until I kind of get squashed by all these new games. But anyway, that is it for this episode this week of our Quack Experimental Podcast. Episode 45 is over and done with. As always, let me know in the comments section below, comments, thoughts, opinions on anything we talked about in here today as well, be it good, bad, opinionated, factual, whatever it is. Just throw it all on down there. Anyway, in the meantime, hit the appropriate button to let me know what I did on the video. And while you're at it, why not head on over and hit the subscribe button, even though YouTube will try and fight it. But we all know that you want to be here. You want to get that first view, that first whatever it is, because everyone chomps at the bit for every weekend when I finally get to upload one of these bad boys. I don't blame you. I don't blame you. Anyway, as always, thank you so much for watching, and remember, winners don't play switch ports.